All right, the semifinals are over. The finals matchup is set in stone. We've got the 3-seeded We Got Us versus the 1-seed Who's Next. That's going to be a huge game, but we'll talk about how those teams got there and maybe a little upset that we saw. Some expected outcomes in the other game. I think we all saw that one coming. On the podcast, at least we predicted that. Actually, no, Steven, you didn't predict that because you wanted the Cinderella story. So we'll talk about that. He'll have his chance to explain himself. Yeah, we'll get into it. I'm here with Steven today. We'll be talking about the semifinals, and then stay tuned. We'll talk about the finals, and we'll make our predictions and all that fun stuff. So yeah, let's get right into it with our first game of the night. And we're going to be talking about Who's Next versus Gangrene. All right, Who's Next took this one 67-54 over Gangrene. First half, it was a blowout. I think it was 45-21 at halftime. Who's Next just came out hot. You know, in the past games with Gangrene, I feel like they've kind of had slow starts, so maybe that's something they took into account and kind of made that their game plan to get out hot. And they did. 45-21 at half is pretty good, but that second half, Gangrene kind of snuck back a little bit, as much as you can when you're down over 20. And Who's Next kind of let up. I think they just kind of started playing sloppy, kind of like, oh, we have the win, and they started turning over the ball. I mean, they had 11 turnovers. That's a lot for Who's Next, and I'm sure they're not happy with that. I'm sure they think they could have won this game by 30 probably, but they kind of played a little out of their zone, I think, in that second half. Maybe they got a little comfortable, but for Gangrene, it's hard when you're the lowest seed left and you're playing the number one undefeated team with all these all-stars, but they put up a fight. You know, they only lost by 13. Kwame Bell, 19 points, 4 steals. He was doing all he could out there. Josh Monty, 11. I think Quandell, 9 points, 9 rebounds. So, you know, the usual 3 guys leading the way, but it just wasn't enough for this all-star roster. Steven, we'll go to you. You know, you were talking about maybe there's going to be a Cinderella story here with Gangrene, but you want to right your wrongs and kind of talk about it. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was definitely wrong on that statement, but I don't regret following the train. You know, it was a fun train ride while it lasted. You know, something that I don't think we really give Who's Next credit on is they are really good at getting points early. You know, and just at the off rip, first quarter is 22-7, which is that's a tough deficit to come back in, especially when you got a team who's shooting 65% from the field and just shooting anything like as soon as they pass half court, you got to put a hand up. So, but I mean, Gangrene was definitely a fun ride to watch, and there's definitely some positives from Gangrene too. Like they won the turnover battle; they had less turnovers, more steals. They definitely had more opportunities than Who's Next. But again, just starting off 22-7 is not easy to come back from. But you know, it's definitely a good team. It was definitely their first. I feel like it's their first season together, right? I think they haven't had another season, but I think it's a good showing for the first season. You know, make the semifinals and keep your head high and get them for next season.
No, definitely. I mean, the whole season, the power rankings, they were on either the last or second to last spot. So to make it to the semifinals, prove a lot of people wrong, survive and outlast a couple other teams, it's something to be proud about. You know, I think the only couple guys that played before were Keandre and Josh Monty. So those other guys, first time being on 8.5, you know, they lost to a veteran team where all these guys, I think, besides EJ, have played on this 8.5-foot rim. So to come within 13 against some of the best players ever to play in Massachusetts Legacy Leagues is a great feat, and they definitely shouldn't be overlooked. You know, that being said, Who's Next? This honestly was probably one of their worst games, I'd say, and that's kind of scary in the semifinals when your next week is your finals. Um, yeah, it was good to see Yala Smith come back. I know he was out for an injury for like the last 5-6 weeks, but he is back. He is such an important piece on defense for Who's Next. You know, they're good at pressing, and they're good at stopping the dribble. But when the ball gets within that 3 point line, they look to Yala Smith to stop the drives, and he leads the way with blocks, and he would have definitely led the league in blocks. I think he was only at 11 when he got injured, so 11 in only I think 4 or 5 games. It's really good. So he's definitely a key piece to this who's next team. So they're thankful to have him back, especially when, you know, they're used to putting up 80 plus. So when it's a lower scoring game like this, his impact is very felt. So yeah, just got to play a little cleaner. I mean, 11 turnovers is not what you're used to seeing for who's next. Um, just passes going through guys' hands, you know, misreading plays, just letting your guard down on offense has just led to Gang Green having a lot more opportunities. And who's next is just lucky they did not have a great shooting night, because they very easily could have brought this game within 5 points in the second half if they were shooting a little better in that first half. So um, yeah, who's next got to lock in for the next finals or next week's finals. I definitely don't think this was their best game. And you know, respect to all those guys, and they know I respect them. So what I'm saying isn't supposed to be disrespectful. It wasn't a good game from them, and they know that. And yeah, Gangrene. This was a good ride. It was their last ride, and I hope to see some of those guys back. They were fun to watch. I love their energy, and they definitely turned some, you know, games that might have been a little boring into some exciting games just from the talk. It was just fun to watch them all season. So sad to see them go, but the who's next moves on and defeats them. We'll move into our next game, which some are saying is the upset. So we'll talk about that one. And this one was We Got Us, the 3 seed versus the Glock Boys in the 2nd seed. We Got Us took it 59-52. Just a huge game. It, I think Glock Boys were out of it by I think like 8 points up until that final minute. It was just a kind of 8 point lead for We Got Us all night. And every time Glock Boys would come down, hit a three, We Got Us would match it. Gio was doing everything he could for Glock Boys, 25 points, hitting a lot of threes. Amandi, this I think we were saying was his lowest scoring game. Averages 30, he only got 16. And when your key guy, your most valuable guy, Amandi, is not scoring his 30 points, you look elsewhere. And Gio's averaging 20, so it's not like he stepped up and took all that workload himself. And we had to kind of look at those other guys like Leon, Jay, Maj to come in and hit those threes that, we've seen in the past games, but they kind of stuck to a core four, and it didn't work out. We Got Us just was firing on all cylinders. Um, Shy 20 points, Jamari 13 points. He hit three threes in a row, and it was in that second quarter, I think, and that kind of just took the life out of Glock Boys, I think. Maybe it was the third quarter. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but it kind of just the gym got loud. We Got Us got hype, and you could see during that. I think Glock Boys called a timeout after he hit his third three in a row, and the Glock Boys bench was so different from the We Got Us bench. We Got Us was hype. They were still locked in, and Glock Boys kind of looked a little defeated. They weren't talking as much. Um, we're used to seeing a little more vocal play from Glock Boys, but it just wasn't like that. Gio was talking all night, him and Jamari, but I think We Got Us kind of let the game talk a little bit more, and that's what led to their win. And they didn't even have Derek doing very well. He shot 4 for 14, or 4 for 14, I think it was. Yeah, he didn't shoot very well. Um, and last week he scored 30 points and they won. And this week he shot pretty terribly, we'll say. And yeah, he they still won. So that shows a lot from We Got Us. And I was saying last week, I think they have the best starting four. Um, Depending on who's next starting four, you never know who's starting for that team. But We Got Us. They have such a strong four, and statistically, I think it's the best this season. And when those guys play together, it's a different team. And I was saying I was a little 50-50 last week. I know some of the guys talked to me. I didn't really I wasn't really solid with my pick, but I was leaning towards We Got Us because I just felt like they had too many options, and that kind of showed this week. And the turnover battle for this game was definitely the game changer. 12 turnovers for Glock Boys versus We Got Us only had two. Glock Boys was just out of it. This wasn't a usual Glock Boys game, but We Got Us just got the best of them, and they played better basketball. They went on more streaks, and they just were able to get a lead early on, and they just matched it all game, and that's how they won. Steven, I'll give you a chance to talk. Talk about this game. Talk about We Got Us. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think what caught my eye, and I think you mentioned it, but I might have missed it, was the turnover difference. With having two turnovers in a game, that is game changing. That is, I believe, the reason why they won. Not creating second chance opportunities or just fast breaks for Glock boys, because we know Weaver, he was held to 16 points. Why is that? Because they let the fast breaks calm down for Glock boys. Every single play that the Glock boys had was pretty much just an isolation, mid range jump shot or drive to the basket, little pick and roll. It was, they were all over it. You had good defenders of Brian Kuby and obviously Derek Revelis, who I thought probably had the most impressive defensive performance out of everyone. Being matched up on Christian Hans, who's like a foot taller than him, yet still getting two steals down low interior. I mean, it's just those small things that just put your team ahead. Because I mean, we talked about it a little bit before the show, but they shot worse than Glock Boys from from the free throw and from just the field in general. And the only reason why it was Jamari's 3-point clinic that he had early on that really set them into like the momentum stage of it. And I think We Got Us is definitely a great matchup for who's next in this finals. But it's going to be, I mean, yet again, I don't think We Got Us played that much of a great game, just like who's next. I think they could have improved in other spots, but I mean, you got the win at the end of the day, so you did what you had to.
Yeah, I think defense was it for We Got Us. Derek is an amazing defender. Jamari's very aggressive. Brian does what he does, and we know he's a good defender. Glock boys, I just don't know what they're doing on defense. It just seemed like they weren't communicating very well, and after it's the semifinals, there should never be an open three, but Shy was open every single time he took a three, and I mean he was just hitting them. I think he hit like the first two in the first quarter, and just nobody was putting a hand up. And then Jamari, he hit one three, and then he hit another wide open, and then he's wide open in the corner for a third one. I just didn't really understand why somebody wasn't just in their face the entire time, whether or not they wanted to play a zone or I mean I just don't know what they were doing on defense. It just wasn't clicking, and they definitely needed to maybe call. I think they only used one of their four timeouts. They definitely needed to talk about it, and slow down those streaks they went on. Three threes in a row. You got to do something. You got to step up on them. I know they kind of shut them down. Jamar didn't really hit any more threes after those three in a row, but it just was too late at that point. You just kind of let them have that lead, and yeah, I think this was basically a 10-point game. I think Amandi hit a and one at the end to make it 7, but it was not pretty for Glock boys. Just not the time to play your worst game. Not the time in the semifinals. And We Got Us was playing at the top of their game, and I think they can play better. Derek, we've seen them play so much better. So it makes this next game very, very interesting because we saw all season We Got Us kind of progressing as a team. Brian, Kubi, Jamari missed a few games, and when they come to play together, it's a much different team. And Who's Next didn't see this full team when they played them, and it was a pretty close game until the end. But yeah, we'll talk about that right now. We'll go into the finals. Good amount of talk, but we'll wrap up that game. So yeah, let's talk about the finals. It's the 3 versus the 1 seed. You got Who's Next versus We Got Us. Um, yeah. So I looked at the past winners in Massachusetts. A couple summers ago, you got the Mob. They were a 3 seed. Then you got the 1 seed A1 winning, and then you got another 3 seed running up winning. So the only other teams to ever win a series or win the finals has been a 3 seed or a 1 seed. So, and that stays true here. We got a 1 seed versus a 3 seed. So it's a very interesting matchup. Something I'll talk about, and we can get it out of the way now, is that Kevin has been in every single one of those, and I know they're listening and they knew I was going to bring that up. Kevin's been in every single one of those finals, and I was leaning towards Kevin in every single one of those. I wasn't on the pod a couple seasons ago, but I was saying to my boys that Kevin was going to win it, and then I picked him in the last two. So we'll see. We'll talk about who I'm going to pick later, but if I pick you, Kevin, do not let me down, man. Do not let me down. I've stuck with you every single time, and it has not worked out for me. So will I switch it up? We'll see. We'll talk about the matchup right now a little bit, get into more depth. But the last time this matchup happened, Who's Next took it 58-47. Very, very, very low scoring game. We got a lowest scoring game. Probably Who's Next lowest scoring game. So definitely a big defensive game. That being said, there was no Derek in this matchup, and this was a huge defensive game. So no Derek, and We Got Us was still kind of doing their thing on defense, only allowing 58 to this team that averages probably closer to 80. Um, yeah, Angel led the way for Who's Next. You know, a guy we've only seen lead the way a couple times. He's not really in the spotlight for scoring every single time. He led the way with 21 points. Um, Yala was in this game, so that doesn't him coming back doesn't really switch up a lot because they've seen him before. EJ shot 1 for 6. He had a terrible shooting game. They still won, but that's something to look at. I don't think EJ is going to do that again. And that being said, I don't think Derek's gonna have a bad shooting night again because he had one in the semifinals. He was talking in the post game interview saying like, "Thank God for my teammates stepping up. I had a terrible night." So he realized his shooting was not on point, and I think he's gonna come into this game very well prepared. And he's gonna make sure he's ready to lock in on offense. Yeah, a lot going for these games. Steven, talk about it, and then we'll kind of go for our picks. Talk about this matchup and what you see with it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think a lot of us saw this matchup coming for the finals early in the regular season, or even recently. Unless you picked Dan Green to do a Cinderella run, but that's besides the point. Um, but I think this is definitely it's going to be defensive, like you mentioned, 1,000,000%. Um, and you mentioned Yala Smith, but I think one guy on Who's Next that's actually like kind of a game changer is Jamel Ebanks. I think he doesn't score a lot, but he plays really good defense. There was a possession on in the semis against Dane Green where I think he switched onto three different people and he did it like flawlessly. It was great, and I believe he even got a block at the end of that play too. But I don't. I mean, maybe I just don't hear it, but I think he deserves a little bit more credit than what he gets because I mean he's great off the pick and roll. I mean he's got some ferocious slams. I'll say that. Like that guy punches the ball through the rim. Definitely a guy that I think We Got Us is gonna have to look out for when he's on the court. I mean, just like you said, I'm gonna give EJ a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. I think that matchup without Derek was kind of early on in the season, right? Was that like week? Was it week 5?
I think it was 5.
It was week 5. I don't know if it was 4 or 5, but I
Let me check it.
remember. Yeah,
It was 5. It was week
it
5.
was 5. Okay,
Yep.
so yeah, now I mean, EJ's new to the 8.5 foot rims, like we mentioned earlier. I mean, there's been plenty of basketball since that game, so I mean, EJ could light them up. I'm not gonna say he is or isn't, but I think it's gonna come down to who just plays the better defense. I mean, if We Got Us can go into this game and only have 2 turnovers again, that could be enough to push them over the edge. I think that could win them the game. But again, not having Derek and still it being a very close game, it's definitely gonna change things a lot. And it's really gonna come to, I mean, just like what you said before, of Who's Next is really good at getting points early. And if We Got Us, after just shooting 42%, going up against a team who just shot 65, you're gonna have to get your points early. You're gonna have to play up to their tempo now. So you don't want to play catch up. You don't want to do it. And I mean, the defense is gonna be on their side with that. And I think we got us as kind of an issue is I think they try way too hard to shoot the three ball. I think they could get so many better looks inside. Because I mean, everyone loves a three ball. Like I mean, it's the most amount of points, right? Like math is math. But I mean, at the end of the day, a bucket's a bucket. And when you're going up against Darwin and EJ and all these guys that can just shoot lights out, you gotta get points on the board to stay even close. Let them make the mistake. Let them throw the game away. I think it's gonna come down if they can get points and just keep up with their tempo for We Got Us.
Yeah, and for We Got Us, they only made like one substitute. I think it was Ben. I think it's Ben St. Felix. I think his name is. I don't want to get that wrong, but um, yeah, Ben St. Felix. He actually I think was very impactful when he came in, and he's a bit of a more on the quiet side when it comes to that team and their scoring. But he did well on defense. I think he switched very well, and he was giving usually Brian some minutes on the bench to kind of get back into it because Kubi's the guy down low. He can get fouls. You don't want him playing the entire game when he's got to be so aggressive, and it's going to be kind of the same. So in this next game, he's definitely going to be a huge factor. Just remember your jersey this week, Kubi. Definitely don't want to be giving them any. Same with Yala. So unless y'all both want to miss your jerseys and we kind of cancel out the text, you guys can do that. But um, yeah, so they're going to be important. Kubi's definitely going to be important. So Ben's going to have to step up coming off that bench, and he's really going to have to lock in. No matter who he is guarding, it's going to be a tough matchup. So they definitely need a little bit of help from the bench. We got us. Who's next? Christian's the guy who doesn't really play for them. He's their coach though. He's got to be making the best possible lineups he can. He's got so many guys that can do so much, but it's about finding that perfect lineup. And honestly, the lineups have been very different this season. We saw a pretty different one. It was like I think it was Kevin Yala, Jay Sean, and Musa out there, and that was a matchup we didn't or a lineup we hadn't really seen all season, and that's kind of just like a Reapers lineup right there. Um, but who's next has so much finals experience. I wrote down quickly the people who have been to the finals on who's next. Jamal, Kevin, Jay Sean, Yala, Darwin, Christian, and Angel have all been to the finals. EJ and Musa, I think, are the only two who haven't. Um, Darwin, Christian, and Angel are the only ones to win the finals, but all those guys have experience, and sometimes when it comes down to a finals, it's about whoever has more experience, and whoever wants it more really. And I think a lot of those guys have kind of been snubbed of the finals one or two times, and they definitely want it. So who's next is gonna have to come and play as hard as they played all season, even harder. They don't know what it's like to play against Derek. They haven't played against Derek in this season yet, so it's definitely a game changer there. Derek's gonna bring a lot for We Got Us. Um, but that being said, we'll make our predictions now. Um, so maybe it was my fault. I've been kind of blaming Kevin all season for him not winning the finals after I picked him, but I was the one who picked him every time. So maybe I was the curse. Maybe it was me. So so I'm gonna let's break that curse, Kevin. If it's me or you, well, let's break it together. I'm gonna go with who's next. Um, Definitely We Got Us have made it super hard to pick who's next, and I never thought that would be the case. Either coming into the playoffs or a couple weeks before the playoffs, who's next just looked undefeatable. But We Got Us is playing some of the best basketball we've seen all season from any team. And Who's Next just had a sloppy semifinal, so they're making it really difficult for me to pick them. But I've been teammates with some of those guys, and I know the work they put in behind the scenes, talking about in the group chat, we talk about the guys we're facing the next week, and they actually like dissect the matchups, and they talk about defense and game plans, and yeah, I and just some of those guys, I just can't see losing this. I can't see Darwin losing this game. He can't. He's not going to let his team lose this. I think they're right here, and they're going to capitalize and play the hardest they've played all season. They know this is the game that matters, and they got a little sloppy at the end, so that was maybe a wake up call for the next game. They had a week off. We got us. This is going to be the third week in a row playing, so they're ready, but I don't know if that's enough to be ready for who's next. Um, I've stuck with we got us all season, but I think this is where it comes to an end, and I think who's next is going to win this. Um, let's pick a finals MVP just have some more fun with it. So let's pick who we think a finals MVP is going to be. So who's next? This is tough because every week is someone else. Um, it's someone else scoring. Angel was the leading scorer and would have been finals MVP if this matchup they had early in the season was the finals. So it's hard to pick. Um, it, it's hard to lean. Like if this was any other game, if EJ didn't play in this game, I probably would lean towards him. But he shot 1 for 6 last time this matchup happened, and whether that was because of we got us defense or just the inexperience on the 8.5 foot hoops or just a bad shooting night. Um, Darwin, as good as he plays, has kind of taken a step back this season and kind of led more to the playmaking side of things, which we all know isn't really who wins Finals MVP, even if you are like just the floor general. Um, uh, Kevin, I'm just gonna stay away from it just so we can focus on winning. Let's not focus about any Finals MVP. Let's focus on winning first. Um, Yala's coming off an injury, so I'm not sure about him. Jamal, Jay Musa are kind of the role players on this team, even though they've been averaging, 15, 20 in the other seasons. Um, Angel could maybe we see another 20-point game from Angel. Um, yeah, I am gonna go with EJ. I think he knows he shot terribly in the last matchup, but I don't know if Derek's going to be guarding him or Darwin. I think Darwin Derek is a very good matchup. I'd like to see that. So I think that's going to leave EJ maybe with Jamari on him. Um, so I think EJ's with who's next, the scoring's so spread out. It could be a 15-point Finals MVP winner. So I think I'm gonna stick with EJ. I think he gets hot, he goes on some streaks, or just even one streak, and he locks up the Finals MVP. And who's next takes this. I think it's gonna be a single-digit win though. It's gonna be a very close game. So Steven, give me your winner and give me your Finals MVP vote.
Mm, man, this is tough. Even when you were talking about your pick, I was still thinking about mine, and it's definitely tough. Like, it really is. It's like last week I kind of messed up by not picking who's next. Even though I picked them like the entire season, even when them and Glock Boys were the only undefeated teams, I still went with who's next. Um, but I will say the improvement that We Got Us has had is I wanted they started off like I think want to say 1-3 or 2-3. I want to say they were not positive the whole season. I can say that for sure. But I mean, now that they're actually playing all together, the one thing that scares me is We Got Us does not have the bench depth that Who's Next does. So it's going to be four guys, probably Jamari, Kubi, Hicks, and Revelis, just probably thugging out majority of the minutes. But stamina is going to be such a tough thing to manage against Who's Next, especially with that depth. And just, how we mentioned earlier how fast paced they were. But as much as I was the villain last week of picking Gang Green against who's next, I'm not going to switch up that easily. I'm going to say We Got Us is going to win this one, mainly because of defense. I mean, and only having 2 turnovers, that's going to win you games. And I think they know that they did not shoot well from the 3 point line. And instead, I think they're gonna play a lot more physical. The only thing I'm scared of is the talking back to the refs and everything for We Got Us. I mean, we've seen it a few times, but I mean everyone does it. It's competitive league. Everyone wants to win. So I mean that's just basketball at the end of the day. But I think We Got Us is gonna win this matchup. Not by much. I think it's gonna be like a 3 point game, if I had to guess. And for MVP, MVP's tough. I don't know how you guys usually look at MVP. I just take it's just scoring for the most part. I
It's
mean,
just, I mean, it can be anything. I mean,
yeah,
maybe maybe Shy scores 20 points, but Derek scores 15 and gets 6 steals.
right.
And then
That's
we'd
what I'm
probably lean
kind of
towards
leaning
Derek. So
towards. Okay, yeah.
statistically, I'd say we kind of
In
make the
that
decision there.
case,
So
in that case, I am gonna go Derek. I think Derek's gonna have 13 points with 4 steals and a block. I think that will be enough, and then have probably 6 rebounds on top of that. I think that could be enough to put him in the MVP conversation.
yeah, if I was sticking with We Got Us, I would probably say Derek. I think he is going to come back after a very low week on the scoring side because his defense is always there. The hustle is already there, always there. I think he's going to come back offensively and kind of have a really good bounce back. Um, but maybe that's going to take away. I think that takes away a bit from Shy or Jamari, because those are the 3 point games what Shy and Jamari have kind of been sticking to in these last few weeks. And if Derek's hitting those, then maybe they don't have to, and maybe that just cancels out, and that doesn't kind of convert to more scoring. Um, yeah, I'm sticking with who's next. I got EJ for Finals MVP. We got to vote for We Got Us and Derek as Finals MVP. Um, yeah, it's gonna be a great finals. I'm excited. I want a huge crowd. We had a great crowd for We Got Us Glock Boys. I want to see everyone back. I want to see the past teams show your respect, show up to these guys in the finals. It's going to be a good one. And next week, before All Star Week, we'll be talking about who won the finals and why they did. And yeah, someone's going to be the new crowned winner of Legacy Leagues in Massachusetts, and I'm excited. All right, we'll see everybody next week. Yeah, I've been your host, Cade. Thank you, Steven, and thank you everyone for listening. Peace.